On behalf of the 45th President of the United States of America, we welcome you officially and for the first time to the Embassy of the United States here in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Thank you.
No country in this chamber would act with more restraint than Israel has. In fact, the records of several countries here today suggest they would be much less restrained. Those who suggest that the Gaza violence has anything to do with the location of the American embassy are sorely mistaken. Rather, the violence comes from those who reject the existence of the State of Israel in any location. Such a motivation, the destruction of a United Nations member state, is so illegitimate as to not be worth our time in the Security Council, other than the time it takes to denounce it. As I conclude, I want to take a moment to mark the 70th anniversary of Israel's independence. In this United Nations Security Council, on behalf of the American people, I congratulate our friends in Israel on the remarkable achievement of 70 years of independence. From humble and desperate beginnings, a proud people have realized the prophet Isaiah's vision of a light unto the nations. May the next 70 years be ones of strength, of hope, and of peace. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Before you get a barrage of questions about these reports coming out of North Korea, I want to start to which I don't think you're going to have an answer other than we've seen the report.
That's your preface always, yes, okay.
Well, I just suspect that it's going to be, the answer is not going to be very solid. Anyway.
You could say that for the end then, Matt, if it's going to be that boring of a lead-up.
Sorry. I want to start with the Mideast.
Okay.
You're obviously aware of what happened yesterday and what's been happening over the course of the last month along the Gaza border. Today, Ambassador Haley at the UN said that the Israeli government had acted with restraint in dealing with the protests along the border. And I'm just wondering, is that the position of the government that Israel has acted with restraint in dealing with these protests?
I don't have her comments right in front of me to be able to put those into the proper context. I think what the ambassador was referring to is compared to how other countries in other situations handle certain things. But I'm not going to parse her comments. I'd have to refer you up to the U.S. UN for additional information on that.
There was the United States government was notable for being one of the few, if not the only, who did not at least call on the government of Israel to take restraint. Other governments went much further. They condemned their actions and the deaths of almost 60 people just yesterday. Are you in a position to be able to say that to criticize or to otherwise say that Israel might not be acting in a proportionate way?
Well, first, let me say we regret the loss of life. We regret the loss of all life. Ambassador Haley said that as well. White House officials have addressed that in addition to that. But let's go back to something that we have covered extensively here, and let's go back to the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. We have had many Gazans who have suffered from the loss of medical care, not being able to have access to enough medical care, not having access to consistent electricity, food, jobs, and many other things as well. The misery that is faced by people in Gaza is because of a result of Hamas. That is something that we come back to. People want to blame Israel for all of this that is going on over the past few weeks. Let's take a look at the dire situation that people in Gaza are facing, and that is a result of Hamas's governing. Let's not forget that. People like to lose sight of that. Okay? Michelle, go
I
ahead.
don't think anyone's necessarily not blaming Hamas for part of this, but the point is so many U.S. allies are also just at the very least saying the words, Israel should use some restraint. Why does the U.S. seem to not want to just even make that simple statement?
Michelle, I said we regret the loss of life. That is very clear. The administration has said that consistently. We've said that, hold on, we've said that on numerous occasions. We have seen how Hamas continues to incite violence. The actions, the activities that are taking place there that you're all referring to would certainly stop if violent protests were to stop and if Hamas were to stop inciting violence, encouraging people to go up to the border fence, encouraging people to cut through the border fence, encouraging people to run down that border fence and into Israel, sending these kites over the fences, all of those activities. They're encouraging people to do those activities. And might I remind people, that is not a safe place to go. It is not a safe place for people to bring their children. If that were to stop, then certainly the violence would stop.
So when the UK calls for an independent investigation of the killings that have happened there, would the US support that?
That's a hypothetical. I'm just not going to get into it. Okay? Saeed, go ahead. Hi, Saeed.
Hi. Yesterday, the White House said that all the blame rests with Hamas. No blame on Israel whatsoever. So do you agree with that statement that Israeli soldiers that shot these people, killed 60 people, 6 of them are children, are not responsible whatsoever by any degree?
I would say Israel has a right to defend itself. When people are being sent to the border, they are bringing weapons, they are threatening to cross through the fence, they are throwing Molotov cocktails. Israel has a right to defend itself. But I want to be clear about this also, that we do regret the loss of life. Ambassador Haley addressed that today. She called the loss of life deplorable. And let's once again get back to why the situation is so miserable. The United States would like to see peace. That is a priority for this administration. We would like to see both sides be able to come back, sit at the table and have conversations about a good and peaceful solution. Unfortunately, we're not there at this point, but we hope that we will be soon.
I fully understand what you're saying. Now, according to all reports, there has been no firing from the Gaza side by anyone so far since the 30th of March. But I just want to ask you once again, there's absolutely no blame whatsoever that should fall squarely on Israel.
Saeed, I'm not going to parse every single event that happens, but let's remember why the situation has become so troubling. Let's remember how Hamas continues to incite violence. If they really wanted peace, they would call for peace, and we don't see them doing that. Okay. Hi, Barbara.
Yeah, just to say, you said that the misery in Gaza was because of Hamas, and of course Hamas has not done a very good job of governing, but are you seriously saying the blockade of Gaza has not contributed to the misery? I mean, that seems to be self-evident.
Look, we have not we, but there is a group of people in Gaza that don't have access to all of the things that most of us do each and every day. We have pretty much unfettered access to healthcare, to clean water, to electricity, all of those things, and that has been a problem there. And when you fail to provide people with the basics that they need, they can become frustrated, and they can certainly turn to violence, and Hamas is certainly encouraging them to do that.
When you block the borders in Israel and in Egypt and people can't get in and out and foods and goods can't get in and out, the same thing happens.
Look, I would just say that Israel has certainly concerns, and they're right to have concerns. I saw it myself, a terror tunnel that was going from Gaza into Israel. For example, they have legitimate concerns about their security and people trying to send weapons and other things through through the various checkpoints. So that's a concern of
So
theirs.
all of the situation in Gaza is completely the fault of Hamas.
It's the primary responsibility. It's primarily the responsibility of Hamas. This is not the first time we've said this. We've been very clear about this all along.
And in terms of an independent investigation, I don't think it's a hypothetical because it has been called for. So what is there any chance?
I don't have anything for you on that.
Heather,
Okay?
I just wanted to ask
Michelle.
you,
All right.
Heather, could I
Go ahead. Go. Hold on. I've already.
Ambassador Friedman?
Hold on. I've already talked to you. Hold on.
Can we
Back
switch to
Michelle.
Iraq?
Certainly. Oh, okay, I'll come right back to you. Okay, one.
quickly, one
Okay,
question.
hold on. One more for Saeed, and then I'll go over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I asked Ambassador Friedman on a teleconference the other day whether he considered East Jerusalem to be occupied territory or whether he considered the West Bank to be occupied territory, and he said, well, look, I have my own personal views as ambassador of Israel. I am not the ultimate policymaker, so I am going to defer to others. I think the situation in the West Bank is unique, unprecedented, and so on. What is your position on the West Bank and East Jerusalem? Is it occupied?
Our position,
or is it
our
not
position
occupied?
on that has not changed. You and I have gone around and around about this many times before. I can just tell you our position on that hasn't changed.
What is it?
Our
Is
position
it
on that.
occupied or not occupied?
I'm going to leave it at this. Our position on that has not changed. We've discussed this before. I'll sound like a broken record. Okay. Let's move on. Michelle, go right ahead.
Yeah, Heather, do you have any comment on the?
Sensitive around the world. Regularly, the U.S. government calls for restraint on all sides. It's such a common, simple thing to say. Why, in this case, is it so difficult? What would be wrong with calling for restraint on the part of Israel?
I think this is a complex region. We're looking at exactly why protests are taking place, why Hamas is encouraging people to go out and protest.
I don't have nothing to say on this issue.
I don't have anything more for you on that, okay? I wasn't there at the time. Let's move on. I don't have anything more for you on this, okay? Look, guys, you'll want to go on all day. We've got a big world to cover, other things going on. Nick, I'll come back to you on something else. I'm Michelle.
On Iraq and the Taliban introduction.